Kamala Harris sat down for her first non-friendly interview in at least 4 years and probably ever last night. It did not go well. We will hit the highlights, but the biggest highlight is this. There is a reason that political parties usually hold primaries to pick their nominees. They didn't do that for Kamala Harris. And if that destroys her already flailing campaign, as well it might, the Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Are there any men left for Kamala? Is there anybody left for Kamala? I don't know. After last night's interview, I'm not so sure. Now, I slept really well last night, not just because of this beautiful interview that destroyed the Democrat nominee for president, but also because of how much I love Helix Sleep. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles. You know, there's nothing quite like a good night's sleep. That is where Helix Sleep comes in. I have had my Helix mattress for, I think, 4 years now. It is a total game changer. They offer 20 different mattress models, each designed for specific sleep positions and preferences. I took their sleep quiz. They matched me with the perfect mattress for my sleeping habits. Unlike some other mattress brands out there, Helix mattresses are 100% fiberglass free. I, for one, hate rolling around on shards of fiberglass. I find it kind of pricks me a little bit in the night. So luckily with Helix, you don't need to worry about any shards going into your back. Also, it's just extraordinarily comfortable. Not only would I trust it with my sleep, I even trust it with my kid's sleep, because when he moved from his crib to his first bed, I fear I'm spoiling him. He got that beautiful Helix mattress. They offer a 100-night trial, a 10 to 15-year warranty. Revolutionize your sleep. Wake up refreshed to fight the good fight. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles, HELIXSLEEP.com/Knowles. With Helix, better sleep starts now. I'm just going to jump right into it. This might be my favorite interview I've ever seen in my life. It was so magnificent. I kept wondering, why is this such a magnificent interview? Is it just because I dislike Kamala Harris? No, there are plenty of politicians I don't like. Is it just because I like Bret Baier? Bret Baier is a very good journalist, but no, there are plenty of journalists I like. It's because other candidates, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton for that matter, Bernie Sanders, other candidates have conducted lots of hostile interviews. They've been put through the ringer. Kamala Harris has not. Kamala Harris ran for president once, not even this cycle. She ran for president once in 2020. She was out before the first primary votes were cast. She then got the nomination this time by default. She didn't have to run. Before that, she was in pretty friendly elections. She has never sat down, certainly not in 4 years, maybe not ever. She's never sat down for not even a hostile interview, just a non-friendly interview. She doesn't even do well in the friendly interviews. So she sits down with Bret Baier on Fox News. Here's how it opens.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a number? Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office,
Put a pause right here. So Kamala Harris immediately launches. It's a simple question for Bret Baier. How many illegals came in on your watch? And she says, Brett, I think illegal immigration is a good thing to talk about. She's trying to go through her memorized line on just immigration in general. And Bret Baier's not having it. Bret Baier says, yeah, well, hold on. Simple question. All right, you're not going to answer that. Let me at least get to the broader question. And she goes, no, I'm not finished. I'm answering. What are you answering? You're not answering the one question he asked. So now he's trying to get you to a broader question. The moment, this is the first moments of the interview. And the moment that Bret Baier just kept plowing ahead with his question and did not allow her to filibuster him, I thought of the Star Wars prequel, Star Wars Episode 1, when there's that giant bug thing, Merchant, in the desert. And goes, "Your Jedi mind tricks do not work on me." Luke Skywalker, or whatever it was, her little tricks, her little evasions might work in a friendly interview. They ain't going to work in a more contentious interview. They're certainly not going to work on a serious journalist like Bret Baier. They go on.
Office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and
they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one...
Put a pause here. So she thought she could just do the stump speech. And we did the Inflation Reduction Act, which didn't reduce inflation. And we did the Infrastructure Act, which didn't fix our infrastructure. And we did. And within minutes, we had an immigration bill. And Bret Baier goes, yes, okay, thanks. Yeah, gotcha. The bill was called this. The bill came out in this year. I know. And it would have given a pathway to citizenship, would have given amnesty to a ton of... That's why it died. But you guys had a unified government. You didn't really do anything. So he politely waits for her to finally get to her point, and then he just completely destroys her point. And what does she have left? She's sputtering. She says, excuse me. She's trying to have that moment she had on a debate stage, where she says, I'm speaking now. But then Bret Baier, because he's a good, polite journalist, says, okay, answer. And then when she is able to speak, she has nothing to say. Keep going.
Recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things.
You have Bret Baier just staring. For those of you who are only listening, I wish you could see this, because it's Kamala flailing and then Bret Baier, who just looks like a building. I don't know. He's just so solidly built, and he's there with that stone face, just waiting for her to answer. And what is her answer? Her answer, in effect, is, I don't know how many came in on my watch. I certainly don't want to tell you how many came in on my watch. I had a bill. Even though we reversed Trump border policies, I had a bill, but we didn't really do anything with the bill, and that's why we're so focused on illegal immigration. We got to fix it. And Bret Baier is looking at her. It reminds me of that scene in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, when the Harvard-trained lawyer is talking to Charlie, and Charlie, who's this kind of scatterbrained janitor who just makes up things about the law, and the Harvard lawyer is looking at him like he's got three heads. He's trying to understand how someone could seriously say the things that he's saying. That's Bret Baier to Kamala here. So then, because they had a limited time, and we'll see how limited their time was, Bret Baier moves on, but still on the topic of immigration, he wallops her with facts and logic, but also the testimony of the victims of Kamala Harris's policies.
And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election. Because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
Since I'm sincere, unlike when I'm usually cynical and dishonest, this time I'm being sincere. She had nothing. Bret Baier is such a good interviewer. And even beyond him being a good interviewer, the facts are just so obvious here that Kamala Harris had to say, yes, I owe them an apology. That's what she said. He says, do you owe people an apology? She's trying to deflect. She says, oh, it's Trump killed this border bill. Bret Baier says, no, the border bill that would have granted amnesty, that would have made illegal immigration worse, that you're referring to, Kamala, that Trump did lobby to kill, that happened much later. We're talking about the early days of your administration here. We're talking about people killed because of the policies in the early days of your administration. You can't blame it on Trump. These were decisions you made. Do you owe Americans an apology for all of the people who have been killed because of your border policies? And what is her answer? She has no other answer but to say, yeah, I'm sorry. Absolutely devastating. Now, we will get back to an interview that legitimately could change the course of this campaign or accelerate the downward course for Kamala Harris in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. Kamala's extreme stance on abortion is clear in her running mate. When you join forces with Preborn, you are protecting the greatest victims in our society, babies in their mother's womb. Preborn's network of clinics is positioned in the highest abortion areas in the country. They've rescued over 300,000 babies. When a woman considers abortion, when she searches to end the baby's life, Preborn is there. One ultrasound costs just $28. 5 ultrasounds, $140. To donate securely, just dial pound 250, say keyword baby, pound 250, keyword baby, or you go to preborn.com/Knowles. I personally support this organization. I strongly encourage you to give whatever you can. I think that the impact is really direct. They do superb work. They manage their organization very efficiently, and they are helping the most vulnerable among us. Head on over right now to preborn.com/Knowles. Your tax-deductible donation of $5,000, if you can spare it, will sponsor Preborn's entire network for 24 hours. Helping to rescue 200 babies. To donate, dial pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/Knowles. Kamala and Bret Baier then move off the specific issue of immigration and get to a broader point in the campaign, which is Kamala's running as a challenger candidate. She's running as a change candidate. She and Tim Walz say, we can't take 4 more years of this, except she is currently in office. She's the sitting vice president. No one has really called her out on that to her face yet. Trump did it a little bit at the debate, but she's gotten away with it. Bret Baier sticks her on the point.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me.
How is she this bad at this? I'm not taking a cheap shot. How is the vice president and current Democrat nominee this bad at this? Ma'am, you're in office now. Why are things going so poorly? Yeah, well, I'm in office, but Trump has been running for office. Yeah, but you're in office. Yeah, he's been running. A lot of people have been running for office, but you're in office. Yeah, okay. Well, I think you know what I'm talking about. And there's Bret Baier, not trying to get a zinger in. I think just genuinely befuddled and bemused. He looks at her, he goes, "Ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about?" Well, okay. Well, I think we know that. This is the point, I think. If it hadn't happened already from the first question, this is the point at which I think Kamala's staffers started rending their garments and gnashing their teeth. Because this was the reveal that this lady's got nothing. She has no answer for anything, even the most basic questions she should have prepared for. She then goes on.
You call Donald Trump.
The significance of that.
You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
exactly.
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand.
Do you see the perfectly impossible position she's in? She goes, Brett lures her in. He says, "You say Trump's crazy, right?" "Yeah, he's crazy. He's nuts. He's deranged. He's this. He's that." Okay. When did you find out that Biden was slipping? And she flips back to her line about this from May and June, before Biden had dropped out of the race. Joe Biden is great. He's perfect. He's good in the Situation Room. He's totally fine. But that can't be true. If Biden were in perfect mental fitness, Kamala wouldn't be the nominee. Biden would be the nominee. Biden was kicked out for one reason and one reason only, that he's not mentally fit to do the job anymore. That's how she got. So she sticks to her old script. Okay, that totally undermines her candidacy. Or she can say, yeah, Biden is deranged, but that implicates her in the cover-up. So she has nothing. And you could see that look of just pure confusion on her face. And she's glitching out. It's like she didn't get the update to the talking point. I could go through every single minute of this interview. I will not. I might go back and just rewatch it because of how savory and delicious it is. This interview went so poorly that Kamala's staff ended it early. Kamala's staff called it. Bret Baier sitting there goes, I'm being told we have a hard out. You have a hard out here. Okay, I guess we'll end the interview. And Kamala says, okay, basically. Bret Baier was so astounded by how this was conducted by Kamala's staff that he reported on it afterward.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. So, Martha, I had to dismount there at the end. There's so many things, and she maybe should do more of these.
What the understatement of the decade. Maybe she should do more of these, but it's too late to do more of these is the problem. So whatever spin you're going to hear today from the left, Kamala's staff ended this interview early. So if the left says, oh, she did great, it was wonderful, she went to the Lion's Den, she stood up, she stood tall. Just remember, that's not what Kamala's staff thought. If Kamala's staff thought she was handling this well, they wouldn't have pulled her from the interview. And Bret Baier is not some wild, he's not even really an opinion journalist. He's certainly not a bomb thrower or a provocateur. He's a straight shooter, respected by both sides, but he's serious. He's a serious journalist, and Kamala Harris is not a serious candidate. Absolutely devastating. It shows you how total the libs' control over the political order is. The fact that this woman could make it this far without ever once facing a serious interview. The fact that Joe Biden could pretend to be the president for years without ever facing really serious questions or having it revealed that he was clearly in decline. It shows you how total the left's control over the political order is, and it shows you how fragile that political order is. That's why they've got to clamp down so hard. If you just get one social media platform, not even the biggest one, you can get the smallest one, X. You can get the word out. If you just get one interview with the candidate. Why did Kamala's staff let her do this? Kamala's staff let her do this because obviously the internal polling is not looking good for them right now. So they have to do something to shake up the race. But they regretted it. The final moment I'll leave you with from this interview, the sputtering with the staffers yelling and waving their arms off camera.
He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Again, if you're just listening, she's shaking her shoulders. She's doing like the Harlem Jive or something. I don't know what this is, kind of like a crazy up and down. I don't know. This kind of, it reminds me of like people dancing in Scooby-Doo or something. She is moving, man. But what is she saying? She's saying, in the United States of America, the president of the United States of America, in the United States of America, needs to be able to handle criticism. Okay, this is the first time that this woman has had to face serious criticism, not even criticism, just questions. And she completely folded. You want that woman negotiating with Xi Jinping? You want that woman negotiating with Vladimir Putin? Do you think that woman could run a Chuck E. Cheese franchise? No. The only way that this doesn't seriously damage the Kamala campaign is if the libs succeed at completely suppressing that interview. The libs on CBS, they support her by re-editing her whole interview, copying, pasting to make her seem coherent. The way the conservatives attack Kamala Harris is just showing her speaking in her own words. Now, speaking of speaking and talking, you got to check out Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. Stop overpaying for data you will never use. With Pure Talk, you can choose how much data you actually want, and you can save. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data, plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you will get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. That is access to the library of DailyWire Plus movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Burcham, and Run, Hide, Fight, uncensored ad-free daily shows, 1 year free of our kids' platform, Bent Key, and a free Leftist Tears tumbler. The only way you get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Knowles, KNWLES, or you can call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Get the cell phone plan that I've got. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, KNWLES. Switch over to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. You can use your plan overseas. You can use it here. You can use it all around with the top service. Head on over to puretalk.com/Knowles. Enough of the greatest interview ever. Let's move to the running mate, Tim Walz. Tim Walz, you think, okay, maybe this guy could do a little bit better than Kamala. He was just asked on a local news affiliate. This is not CBS, 60 Minutes. This is not Fox News Channel. This is WGAL, NBC affiliate, Channel 8. Is asked a serious question about the border. Here's his answer.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection say there were 10 million illegal crossings in the first years of the Biden administration. Was it a mistake to overturn former President Trump's border policies and talk negatively toward the wall?
Well, the first day in office, President Biden and Vice President Harris put a proposal forward. And what we know is that crossings are down now than when Donald Trump left office. We also know that there is a solution to this. It's a bipartisan bill crafted by the most conservative Republican senators, the Border Patrol agents. And the only reason that that's not in place right now is Donald Trump wanted it to fail. And now over the weekend, he makes up some ridiculous number that he wants to fix the border. Donald Trump's not interested in fixing the problem. Donald Trump wants the problem. It allows him to talk about it and allows him to spread vile and quite honestly, just absolutely false information about people.
So he's a little slicker than Kamala. He's a better salesman than he can at least use the English language with relative fluency. But the answer is weak. And the reason the answer is weak is right there in the question. Hey, on your watch, you've had 10 million illegal crossings. You repealed Trump's border policies. Trump's border policies were more effective than yours. Do you regret repealing Trump's border policies? And Walz and Kamala will say, well, we had a really great bill that would have been really, really great. And we did this and we did that and we could have done this. And if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. And if turnips were watches, I'd wear one at my side. But, it would have been woulda, shoulda, coulda. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. The way you know that you don't need this border bill that the Democrats focus on, that would have made illegal immigration worse and would have effectively given an amnesty to a lot of people, would have increased crossings. But the way you know you don't need that bill is Trump enforced the law without the bill. Trump didn't need the bill. How come Trump could enforce immigration law without that new bill and you can't? You obviously could, you just don't want to. So Walz comes up with the best version of it that he can. I don't think that persuades anybody. And that's backed up by the polls. There's a poll out now by Gallup. So it's not even a right-wing polling firm. It's Gallup polling. Shows that Americans are considering themselves Republicans over Democrats by a 7-point margin. That's Republicans or Republican leaning by a 7-point margin. So this is conducted October 1st through 12th, and it's measuring the change from just a few weeks ago and back in September. Republican self-identification, 31%. That's up 4 points in about 3 weeks. Democrat, 28%. So it's lower than the Republicans already, and it's down 3 points in about 3 weeks. Independent, 41%. That's down 1 point. But when you zoom into the independents, when you include independent leaners, Republican ID, 49%, that's up 4 points. Democrat, 42%, that's down 7 points. So more people are identifying as Republicans, and the independents are breaking clearly for the Republicans. Why? Because no one can name the issue that breaks for Democrats right now. The Democrats have failed on everything, which is why if you zoom out to the broader election, I mean, we are now weeks away from the election, but really you can count it in days. We currently have the most ideal conditions one can expect to win the election. Not the ideal conditions for the country, poor conditions for the country, which is why it's ideal for a challenger party, right now the Republicans. But we currently have the ideal conditions. The incumbents are underwater on the economy, on immigration, on a lot of social policy, though not all social policy, on foreign policy, on everything, on certain civil liberties, on election integrity. They're underwater on everything. Their candidate is possibly the worst major party nominee ever nominated by any major party in the United States. And our major party nominee, the Republican nominee, Trump, though he has some unfavorables with certain segments of the population, was very nearly assassinated twice. So he even has that kind of political sympathy. And the vast majority of Americans believe he's being unjustly prosecuted and persecuted by the Democrats in office. Even the people who don't like Trump agree with that. We have the ideal political conditions, which is why if we can't win now, I worry that we just can't win. If we cannot win the presidency in this election and win the Senate and do well in the House and win at the state level, if we can't win with the ideal political conditions, I worry that we just can't win. The Democrats have been playing a real long game to radically change the demographics of the country and to radically change the way that our elections are conducted and to radically change the structure of the government. And they've been playing that game for a long time. They've been talking since the early 2000s about how they're going to change the demographics of the country to bring in people who are more likely to vote for Democrat and discourage people who are more likely to vote for Republican. And I fear if we can't win now, this were 30, 40 years ago, same kind of conditions in the country, the Republican would win every state. And you think about Ronald Reagan in 84, won 49 states. And the campaign manager of Reagan's 84 campaign once told me that he thinks they won Minnesota too, but they didn't want to look petty. So if this were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, Trump would win every single state. The fact that this is close shows you how successfully Democrats have changed the long-term political trajectory of the country and the political conditions. If we can't win this time, I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath for the next time. This is why Elon, by the way, says this is the last election. He says just because of migration, that alone could so change the demographics, which in a self-government is how the elections are conducted. It could so radically change that there will be elections, but they'll be kind of meaningless. Now, there is one prominent figure who appears to be siding more with the left than the right these days appears. That would be Seinfeld. You remember Seinfeld came out a few years ago and he said, this woke left, they're totally nuts. They're killing comedy. The college shows are annoying now, all this kind of stuff. Well, Seinfeld just came out and he recanted it. He said, quote, I don't think the extreme left has done anything to inhibit the art of comedy. I'm taking that back now officially. They have not. Do you like it? Maybe, maybe not. It's not my business to like or not like where the culture's at. It's my business to make the gate. He's using a skiing analogy here. He says, it's my business to make the gate. If I'm skiing, I got to make the gate. You make the gate or you're out. If you're Lindsey Vonn, if you're a champion skier, you can put the gates anywhere you want on the mountain. She's going to make the gate. That's comedy. Whatever the culture is, we make the gate. We don't make the gate, we're out of the game. The game is, where's the gate? How do I make the gate and get down the hill the way I want to? I've never gone skiing in my life, so I really don't know what he's talking about, but I guess it's a skiing analogy, and it's a good one. This is being reported as Jerry Seinfeld flips. He no longer blames the left. He no longer blames the woke. He no longer thinks the left is bad for comedy. He retreats. He recants. Not really. What's he saying here? He's not saying that the libs are not culpable for screwing up the culture. He's saying it doesn't really matter. You got to be in the game. This is where I really have no use for the black pill doomer types who say it's all over, Western civilization's totally dead, there's nothing to do, go sit home and cry. Because I'm sympathetic to many of their observations. The Democrats have changed all the election laws. They've perverted people's education in the schools for decades now. They've obliterated the institution of marriage. They've changed the demographics of the country cynically in their favor. They've done this, they've done that. Yeah, it's all true. But so what? If this is the game, you got to make the gate. I don't know what else the black pillars and the doomers and the people who are given to despair, which is a mortal sin, by the way. These people, they act like they're so above it all, like they're so sophisticated. They're seeing something that everyone else isn't seeing. No, they're just cowards. That's what they are. They're just losers and cowards. Because you can totally grant that the system is unjust, it's unfair, it's rigged against us, it's very difficult to really get any win at all. If Trump's going to win this election, he's going to have to win by a lot so that the shenanigans don't overwhelm it. Yeah, I agree with all of that. What's the alternative? Surrender? Total concession of the whole culture? Yeah, no thanks, count me out. I don't want to be a loser, okay? I want to win. This is like the people. You hear this even from conservatives. They say, Michael, do you really want to die on the hill of, and then they'll name some principled point in politics. On the hill of, I don't know, bioethics or marriage or abortion or I don't know. And I think, I don't intend to die on any hills. I don't know about you. I'm willing to risk certain things in politics. I'm willing to, in the pursuit of principle and in the pursuit of the common good, I'm willing to take chances that might come back and hit me. But I don't intend to die. I don't want to be a loser. I intend to win, man. That's the point Seinfeld's making. I think he's right. He's basically saying, what's the deal with complaining about the left? It's pointless. Doesn't matter. Seinfeld's going to go out there and win. Donald Trump, he's going to go out there. He's going to do everything he can to win. And that's what I'm going to do too. Okay? No, I'm not. Forget about the despair. I don't care. Oh, the political order is unjust. It's unfair. Yeah, wow. Good morning. Oh, you just noticed that? Oh, okay. Welcome. Welcome to adulthood. Welcome to politics. That's how it works, man. I think it was Cocaine Mitch McConnell who made the point. It's a very good point. The winners go to Washington, the losers go home. Let's not be losers. Let's win. And the moment you've been waiting for is almost here. On October 28th, Matt Walsh's hit comedy, Am I Racist?, is coming to DailyWire Plus. When it hits theaters in September, it immediately became the number one new comedy. No question. Now it is officially the number one documentary of the decade. Plus, it's verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with a 97% audience score. DailyWire Plus is the only place you can stream Am I Racist at home, and it all starts October 28th. If you are not a DailyWire Plus member, go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code DEI for 35% off new annual memberships right now. My favorite comment yesterday is from Days Gone Sequel, who asks, why is Greta even famous? What did she do besides cry and scold conservatives about something that's not even real? Well, she skipped school, so she was a truant, and she also sailed a sailboat across the ocean to make a point about climate change, after which she was met by her handlers who flew over in jet planes, spewing much more pollutants into the air than would have occurred had she just bought a coach seat on an airplane like a normal person. So that's also why she's famous. And now she's famous for, I don't know, waving the scimitar, wearing a keffiyeh. Speaking of a rigged game, Fox News is hitting the Kamala Harris campaign by asking her questions and showing her answers. CBS, Face the Nation, is hitting Republicans. This is after the egregiously deceptively edited 60 Minutes interview. They now had House Speaker Mike Johnson on Face the Nation. They did it again. They deceptively edited his answers again. Mike Johnson happily had a staff member recording his full answers in the little van where they do the hits. So you're able to see side by side what CBS did not want you to hear.
You know that it is against the law for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. That's established law.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But here's the problem. There's a number of states that are not requiring proof of citizenship when illegals or non-citizens register to vote. We know that's happening.
But respectfully, Speaker,
everybody should want the law to be followed.
You know that it is against the law for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. That's established law.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But here's the problem. There's a number of states that are not requiring proof of citizenship when illegals or non-citizens register to vote. We know that's happening. Look, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, I was going to say, he issued an executive order to clean up their voting rolls heading into the election. Less than 30 days out, a couple of days ago, the Biden administration, Department of Justice, Biden-Harris administration, sued the governor and the Commonwealth of Virginia to try to prevent them from cleaning up their voter rolls. See, that kind of thing creates a lot of doubt and concern in the minds of a lot of the American people. Why would they do that? Everybody should want the law to be followed.
Every Republican needs to start doing this. There is no journalistic reason to cut out the meat of Speaker Johnson's answer there. The challenge is this doesn't happen. It's already illegal to vote if you're an illegal alien in these jurisdictions. And it's already bunk. And then in the answer that CBS played, he flops around and doesn't have an answer. But in his actual answer, the part they cut out was the substance, was the evidence, was the proof. It's not just on voting. He was asked about the hurricane and hurricane recovery efforts. Here's what they play versus what he actually said.
So that's a different accounting than this 2% you say was distributed.
Yeah, so they've obligated some funds, but they've only distributed 2%. The rescue and recovery effort's still going on, and then we address the rest of it.
So that's a different accounting than this 2% you say was distributed.
Yeah, so they've obligated some funds, but they've only distributed 2%. And when I was there on the ground, and you should go, I mean, bring the cameras and talk to the people there. They'll tell you, don't take politicians' words for this or the administration's word. Talk to the people there on the ground. They had not been provided the resources almost 2 weeks out from the storm that they desperately needed. And when I was there, 13 days post the storm hitting that state, people are still being rescued. They're stuck in the higher elevations in the mountains because the roads are down and all the rest. So they need every available resource and all hands on deck. The rescue and recovery effort's still going on, and then we address the rest of it.
Even if you wanted to give CBS the benefit of the doubt and say, well, they were editing down for time to air on television, and so it could only be 5 minutes instead of 6 minutes. Okay, then how come you keep cutting out the most substantive parts of his answers? How come you specifically keep excluding all the important parts? It's got to be intentional. So at this point, I think the Republicans should do live interviews if they can. And if it's not a live interview, they got to do exactly what Mike Johnson did. It's just like how the Democrats cheat in elections by stuffing the voter rolls with people who are not eligible to vote. And the Republicans cheat in elections by taking those ineligible voters off the rolls. So it's not really cheating. It's that the Republicans cheat by being honest. Same thing here. The Democrats cheat by carving up and cutting up what politicians say and making the Democrats look good and the Republicans look bad. Republicans cheat in the media by showing the Democrats in their own words. They cheat by being honest. You want to talk about a rigged game, especially when it comes to voting? The Nebraska Supreme Court has just restored voting rights to 7,000 felons. This is an order. There was an order by the Republican Secretary of State, Bob Evnen, that would have kept 7,000 or so Nebraskans from voting in the upcoming election because they were felons and they didn't have a right to vote. But now the Nebraska court says, no, they do have a right to vote. And so what does this matter? You say Nebraska is a Republican state, right? Sure, it's a Republican state, but Nebraska is one of two states that apportions electoral votes by district. Maine is the other one. So it's a Republican state, sure, but they have a district in Nebraska that went Democrat in 2008 and 2020. So when it was Biden-Harris, this one district went Democrat. That means that Democrats could get a little juice in the Electoral College simply by the Democrats trying to make sure that felons vote. Why am I picking on the felons? Listen, I think people should be reintegrated back into society after they've done their time, even for serious crimes. If they've done their time, they need to be reintegrated. I totally agree with that. I don't think people should be ostracized from society forever just because they've been to jail. And actually, some people can really be reformed in jail. I know people who've really had their lives turned around in prison. That said, there is a reason that we prevented felons from voting for a lot of, it's just not, I guess you just have to think about what voting is for. And the Democrats get this totally backwards. We vote, we have people vote in America because we think that will give us the best kind of government. You're going out to the ballot box, or these days, I don't know, you having a ballot harvester Democrat come and, take your stack of mail-ins. You vote for good government. The purpose of voting is to get good government. For the Democrats, it's the opposite. For Democrats, they pretend as though the vote is an end in itself, that the vote is intrinsically good. The vote is not intrinsically good. The vote is instrumentally good. It's for good government. So you think, okay, who should vote? Should 5-year-olds vote? No. Well, Democrats probably would say, yes, they should. But no, 5-year-olds should not vote. Why? Aren't they then being governed without having a direct representation? Yeah, I guess that's true, but they're kids, and you wouldn't have a good country if you had kids making all your decisions. So kids don't vote, foreigners don't vote. Certain people who are not able to take care of themselves generally don't vote. And people who can't show an ID, they can't prove who they are, they really should not vote. And we say, okay, felons probably in a lot of cases should not vote. Democrats say, no. We do really well with children. That's why they want to lower the voting age. We do really well with illegal aliens, foreigners, people who aren't American. We want them to vote. And we do really well with felons. What does that tell you about the Democrats? What does that tell you about how they appeal to people? By the way, felons overwhelmingly vote for Democrats. Overwhelmingly. And it's not just felons who are in prison. It's once they get out of prison. It's especially when they get out of prison. There was a study in 2019, Ragnar Labs. Currently incarcerated felons are more than 3 times as likely to be registered as Democrats or as unaffiliated than as Republicans. Ex-felons are 4 times as likely to be Democrats or unaffiliated. So you're more likely when you actually get out of prison, and then the gap between Democrats and unaffiliated voters is lower among the active population. It's plus 7 Dem. When you get to the released population, it's plus 28 Dem. So why are they doing this in Nebraska? Because they know it's going to give them a huge advantage. It might help them out in the Electoral College. Who knows? Maybe they think it could sway the election. I mention all of this because it's just one of the many shenanigans that the Democrats are engaging in, but also because it gives you a simple rule of thumb to understand politics. Sometimes we get lost in our head on ideology, on history, on this and that. A really simple heuristic, a really simple rule of thumb here for understanding politics. If you want to understand a policy proposal, just ask yourself who it benefits. If you want to understand why the Democrats are trying to make children and foreigners and felons vote, you don't need to read 500-page philosophical tomes about the rights of illegal alien child felons. You need to ask yourself, who does that benefit? Oh, it benefits Democrats. They're 3 to 4 times as likely to vote for Democrats as for Republicans, so they want to enfranchise them. Illegal aliens, overwhelmingly likely to identify as Democrats. The children of illegal aliens and of migrants broadly, overwhelmingly likely to vote for Republicans. The handful of immigrant groups, overwhelmingly likely to vote for Democrats. The handful of immigrant groups who do vote a little bit for Republicans, I think of Cubans, the Democrats shut down immigration from those places. Barack Obama never met an illegal alien he didn't like until it came to Cuba, because the Cubans vote for Republicans. And he ended wet foot, dry foot. Simple way to do it. This is hard-nosed politics, and especially when the Democrats are losing on the issues, especially when the Democrats can't answer one simple question from one serious journalist, the only way that they're going to win this thing is by turning up the shenanigans, turning up the cynicism, and ramming their candidates through. Now, speaking of philosophy, I have one of the great minds of our era. I mean that sincerely. I hate to compliment him. I won't do it to his face when he's actually on the show. But truly, one of the most brilliant people speaking in public right now, my friend of many, many years, who has a new book out. That would be Dr. Spencer Clavin. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
The question everyone in America is asking,
am I racist?
Make those moves.
Get a DailyWire Plus membership to see Am I Racist?
This is all I have. Did you want to?
I can help you guys out.
Yeah.
Go to amирacist.com and sign up now.
I've been told because I'm a white male, kind of at the top of the pile, how do I get down from the top?
I don't think you necessarily can.
How do we get past all the talk about racism?
We have to love each other.
Well, it can't be that simple. How do we get to a point of racial harmony? It's good to talk to you. We're still on a journey, all of us together.
I think you got some journeying to do.
Just talk to me about the statistics. We have an epidemic.
20 million crimes a year, 6,000, 7,000 hate crimes. No, there's no epidemic.
Why are we talking about statistics? This is not a matter of statistics.
Well, you asked me about the statistics.
Am I Racist? Coming to DailyWire Plus on October 28th. Rated PG-13.